Get ready for some upbeat banter, plenty of laughs, and a whole lot of love for the game and our team. This is Buds and Blue Jays. And now your hosts, Riley McConnell and Jesse Burrell.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday, October 10th, and welcome to episode 217 of Buds and Blue Jays. It's your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. Jesse 1 and Jesse 2, Jesse Burrell and Jesse Teresio on the episode here today. And Jesse, my man, episode 2 of the offseason. Last week we went in, we dissected the Toronto Blue Jays season. We kind of looked at what went wrong. And today we are going to dive a little bit deeper. We're going to look at some of the trade rumors that the Blue Jays have swirling around this team. Some more thoughts about what happens now at the Blue Jays as we head towards the offseason. And also, Jesse, we are going to embrace our inner teacher, our inner parents. And we're going to hand out some grades over all these players for the 2024 Toronto Blue Jays. And plus, we're going to look back at some of the bold predictions we made at the start of the year and kind of have a laugh at just how bad those bold predictions are now in the second half of this episode. But Jesse, my man, how are your teaching skills? I know you're a full-time father, so there's got to be something there. But are you a tough teacher, a strict teacher, a mean teacher? Are you lenient? What's your teaching style?
When it comes to the Jays, I'll probably be the bad teacher where it's like, you're not getting away with anything. But if it was my daughter, maybe you'd get a passing grade, even if it's awful.
Right, so we're going to give the Blue Jays some tough love here then on this episode. No hard passes, no hall passes. Everyone gets detention, right? Is that how it's going to be? Or are we giving somebody into the honor rolls, or how do we want to go about this?
Maybe there's one honor roll student, maybe two, but most of them will get the ruler.
Damn, bring back the ruler. Hey, we are going really hard against this 2024 Toronto Blue Jays team. And honestly, they probably deserve it after the season we just saw from the Blue Jays. Before we get into the meat of the episode, guys, if you are here and joining us, welcome. Glad to have you all. Please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Leave us a 5-star review on all those podcast platforms. Leave a good comment, review, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Anywhere you can find your podcast, you can find our show. Stick with us as we get to what is going to be a long but eventful offseason for the Toronto Blue Jays. Without further ado, Jesse, my guy, want to just dive straight into handing out some grades here?
Let's get it. Professor Teresio is ready.
Right, well, Professor, you said it here first. Get the cigar and get that top hat out ready. Because let's just dive into the first player. And I want to calibrate this scale of grades with, I think if a player met our expectations or they were exactly fine with what we do, we give them a B, I assume. So it just means like, yeah, they were good, not great. They were fine. They met our expectations. Obviously, B plus up to an A is, exceeded it. These things were great. And then C, slightly worse. D is just bad. And F, well, stands for fail. I don't think I need to explain that. We know there's no coming back from this. They need to be held back a grade. Maybe spend more time in AAA, et cetera, et cetera. So with that calibration set, Jesse, let's just dive right into the player pools. And we'll start on the offensive side of the ball. And we'll start with who was very likely our team MVP this season, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who finished his season 30 home runs, 103 RBIs, 199 hits on the season, did not quite get to 200. Hit 323, 396, 544 on the season. Jesse, give me your grade on the superstar of the franchise, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
There's only really one grade to give him because he was our team, and it's an A+. If I could do an A++, it would have been if he hit the 40, 200, and maybe 120 RBIs and all that. But no, there's nothing more than he's an A+. And yes, going back on what I was saying last episode, he is a generational player, and why we need to pay the man.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. A+ is a lot, my guy. He only hit 30 home runs. He hit 48 in 2021. You thought, maybe he could have. There's still more room to. Like when I hear A+, I think this is it. This is as high as Vladdy is ever going to get. Which, as good as he was, I still think there's another level for him. So I'm going to give him just a solid A because obviously he was fantastic this year. His second best year of his career, led the Blue Jays by far, but I do think there is still more room for growth in that still.
No, I agree on that, but I was going for this season. If I'm thinking career-wise, what he can potential, even for next season, then no, I wouldn't give it, but I was just going for this grade. So you didn't specify for the future. I was thinking right now, so that's why he gets my A+.
Sure, but like my theory is A++ is like he's having the Aaron Judge type season, right, where he's smashing 60+ home runs, et cetera, et cetera.
What says he's not going to next year?
Well, hey, then let's hope that happens.
Contract year.
The contract year of Vlad could be a scary thing, and I kind of hope that it's not a contract year because that means we've locked him up to a big deal this offseason, which I'm skeptical of. I know you not so much, and I know a lot of Blue Jays fans out there are quite confident a deal will get done, but I'm not so certain that the Blue Jays are going to get a deal done with Vlad, but that's a talking point we can have later this offseason.
No, exactly. But for right now, he'll still get my A+.
All right, well, good. We're off to a flying start here, and I've ranked these hitters in order by plate appearances, so who got the most plate appearances over the course, and then pitchers will be by innings pitched, so we'll get to that. But the next one, and Jesse, I do not think you are going to give this player an A+, but that is George Springer, who was projected coming into the season to be a 258 hitter, hit 27 home runs, have 2.9 more season. Jesse, we both know that is not what happened with George Springer this year. He ended up hitting 220, 19 home runs, only 1.2 WAR. The end of the hood stats got worse. It looked like it was a major sharp decline. Give me your grade for George Springer this season.
If only his name started with this letter, D. Like it was because he was a D. Another word that starts with a D is disappointment. So,
yeah.
Like this, we knew that too, or decline, which we saw. Yeah. But this season, we figured it would be a bit of a decline, but boy, he really went off the cliff there, and just I don't know, like. Thought maybe it would be a good season when he hit those 2 home runs in the first 2 games, but then it just was a tire fire.
Yeah, George Springer looks tough. You look at 19 home runs and you think, well, that's not too bad. He was second on the team in that, and he stole against 16 bags, which is up there. But, like, man, the George Springer experience was rough. 34 years old this year. He struck out more than he ever has. I have some notes here. His quality of contact was just abysmal. Let's see where we got here. Yes, George Springer. Yes. 2 sharp drop-offs in a row now, and this was the first year of his career he had a below-average WRC+. It was down to 95. His defense was the worst it was ever been, and although he did run the bases a little bit well, it's just been the quality of contact stuff. The average exit velocity, the max exit velocity, the hard hit rate, the barrel rate have all dropped significantly for George Springer. And there was a stretch towards the end of that season there where I was thinking, like, George Springer might never get an extra base hit ever again. Like, it was starting to look really bleak for George Springer. And, like, guy will be 35 years old next year. He's had 2 straight seasons of sharp decline. The Blue Jays seem optimistic that they can bring him back and that there are some things they like. They were saying that all year when George Springer sucked. I don't see it, man. I think this is the end of George Springer, and I'm with you. A D sounds like the right grade for Springer this year.
Oh, yeah. Definitely no. I don't think there would be if he improves, then I'd be suspicious if there's still assistance if he comes back and hits like 40 bombs or something like that. But I know there's a thing called dash strength, but he's already been a dash, so I don't think he can improve on dash strength.
Yeah, George Springer's got to find something else. Maybe he can get grandkid strength, but I mean, he's 35 years old. He should not be having grandchildren at this age. I was going to save it for our things we want to see this offseason, but if we can somehow move off of George Springer's contract, I think that's a move I really like the Blue Jays to do, although I don't see it happening, but a man can dream.
Or at least get him out of the leadoff spot because he does not deserve that many at-bats.
Which I agree. The fact he was second on this team in plate appearances says something about maybe why the Blue Jays offense struggled as a whole. The next player that I want to talk about here, Jesse, and he goes third on our team in plate appearances, is Dalton Varsho, who coming into the year was projected to hit 238, 308 on base, 438 slugging, 25 home runs for 2.7 WAR. He finished the season hitting only 214, only got on base at a 293 clip, slugged 407, so all 3 of those were below his projections, but 18 home runs, 52 RBIs. He actually got better WAR, 3.3. His WRC plus was right at league average. It was at 100. But the defense was fantastic, as always, best in baseball for Dalton Varsho. The base running, small step back, but was still fine for Dalton Varsho. What grade are you giving our center fielder for this season?
If I could have just done him defensively, would it be an A? Because he's going to be a platinum glove winner. I don't care what people have to say. You can fight me on that.
Okay, wow.
But if you put both, because I have to put both, I would give him a C because yes, the offense wasn't great. Yes, he had some clutch hits and all that, but his defense saved his season and my grade field. So he's just immediately like he at par, but that defense puts him at that elite level. So I'm fine with giving him a C because I feel like there's more.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you there. I do feel like there is more on Dalton Varsho. I'm going to give it a B- here just because center field defense is so good and so overrated or underrated. And I'm watching some of these center fielders, these outfielders play in the postseason right now. And how many times I've watched one of these games and I go, Dalton Varsho catches that ball or Dalton Varsho ranges that. Like, it's just, I don't ever want to take that for granted how good of a center fielder he is. And the bat, look, a 99 WRC plus. He did hit 18 home runs. It leaves you some room to be desired. But I'm actually taking a little bit of optimism here that things can get a little bit better for Dalton Varsho going into next season. The power came back a little bit late. We saw there was a stretch early in the year where Dalton, I remember when the Jays went through San Diego, I believe it was, Dalton Varsho was hitting a bunch of home runs. You mentioned the clutchness. He was the most clutch Blue Jay by Fangraph's clutch metric. So that's a good skill to have. Overall, I'm encouraged. It was nice to see the on base come up. He hits way too many pop ups, so we need that to stabilize a little bit. But if Dalton Varsho can just find the barrel just a little bit more, oh yeah, we're cooking with a good player here in Dalton Varsho.
Oh, definitely. Like I feel like possibly too the change of philosophy when it comes to hitting, and hopefully it's strictly Matt Haig, and with Guillermo gone and Donnie Baseball back to a bench coach and stuff like that. Maybe this will be the player we thought we were getting when we traded Gurriel and Marino to Arizona to get him. So, and then again, too, he is still young, and again, this is really his third full season playing outfield instead of being a catcher. So,
yeah,
like if you're a gold like platinum glove caliber and that quick, usually your defense plays, then your offense comes back. So I feel like possibly next year the offense could click with a healthy shoulder and everything.
Yes, and I was going to say some of the decline down the stretch for Dalton Varsho was because of his shoulder was being hurt. So I do like the chances of Dalton Varsho having an improved season, assuming he is healthy and has no issues with that shoulder going into next season. Jesse, the next player we're going to talk about here is our left fielder / second baseman, who we were all very excited for going into the season. And I don't think we're going to give a positive grade on this player, but Davis Schneider, my guy, was coming into the season projected to hit 231, 13 home runs, 1.7 WAR. I don't have to tell you or anyone listening, but we know Davis Schneider did not have a good season with the Blue Jays. 191 on base at a 282 clip, slugged 343, which is way down than what he was projected to get to do. He did hit 13 home runs, so the projections nailed that, but an 80 WRC plus, not even a half a WAR on the season. The walks dropped, the strikeouts rose. In fact, he struck out more than any other Toronto Blue Jay on this team in significantly less at bats, which not good. And all the hard hit data got worse. Base runnings below average, and he made improvements as a defender, but he was just fine as a defender. So give me your grade for Davis Schneider on the season.
I literally have to give him an F because with everyone thinking the Babe Schneider was going to come back, I really feel like this season showed what he is. And yes, it was nice to see that hot streak like last year when he came up, and even when he had that clutch home run against Josh Hader in Houston. But realistically, he was picking splinters out of his butt because he was just realistically sitting on the bench for the majority of the season. And when you go from June to pretty much September, I believe, or August, without hitting a home run in that many games, are you really realistically helping the team or hurting the team?
Yeah, he was very much hurting the team at points. -10 offensive WAR for Davis Schneider after he had just 2 WAR as a whole in just his 35 games the year before. So it was a real struggle for Davis Schneider. He looked good early in the year, but then eventually pitchers learned how to pitch them, and Davis Schneider didn't make the adjustment. Now, Davis Schneider has the tools, but it's still he doesn't really hit the ball very hard. And I don't want to give him a complete F for the grade because he did make some improvements defensively. But I'm grasping at straws here, trying to find positives for what Davis Schneider did this season. We had said multiple times while the season was going on that if the Blue Jays were in a more competitive stance, that Davis Schneider would have been down in Buffalo. And I do not think he's a lock to make this team. I do even think there is a real chance that maybe like David Schneider's even cut, which unlikely, but chances are not zero going into next year. Because a 191 batting average, 13 home runs, below average WRC plus guy doesn't get on base. I'm sorry, but if the Blue Jays are actively trying to compete, David Schneider either needs to be better or we need to find somebody else to replace him off this roster.
Exactly, and there's so many. Like if you look at our roster too, there's so many people who fit that bill. So it's like, we have Clement, we have Fortas, we have Wagner, we have Perfino, we have like so many others in the minors too that can do
Elvis Martinez, maybe
exactly a Martinez, or if we pick up someone off like in the free agency, what Schneider provides, you can find anywhere right now. Like, and anything would be better than him right now.
I'm with you, my guy, which sucks because when David Schneider is on, he is so fun to root for, but it does seem very tough right now. Let's go to his roommate then, which is the next player, and that is Ernie Clement, who was much better this year. 262, 313 on base, 380 slugging. This was his projection for 3 home runs and 1.7 WAR. Well, he power boom past that. He hit 12 home runs this year, 94 WRC plus, but 2.2 WAR. Both his walks and his strikeout rose, but Ernie Clement doesn't really do either of those. He's just making contact, so neither of them are very high. He did steal 12 bags too, which I thought was noticeable for Ernie Clement. And all the StatCast stuff is right in line with his career averages for Ernie Clement. A positive season for him. Give me a grade.
I would definitely give him a B because the moment we saw him in spring too, like beating out Espinal and Escobar and all that in spring to make the roster, and like we definitely saw more of him than we thought we would because of injuries and just how this team was all year. But yeah, definitely a positive. Like I definitely didn't think he would hit double-digit home runs, but I knew he would play solid enough defense, and like I know he was one of the fastest, if not the fastest, before Class A came up on our team. Like I knew he would help us a lot, so I would definitely give him a B grade just because I was impressed, especially because a lot of people probably thought he'd be the 26th man off the bench.
Yeah, Ernie Clement was hitting 5th or 6th a lot down the stretch for the Toronto Blue Jays, and really solidified himself as the everyday third baseman in the second half, or shortstop, or wherever he was needed in the second half of the season. I remember, and we're going to get into our bold take review later in this episode, but I remember in the spring we were looking at Ernie Clement, who was having a really good spring, and we thought, well, last year in Toronto in 2023, he played 30 games. He had 0.6 WAR. You just multiply that by 5, or to make 162 games. He's a 2.5, 3 WAR player, and that's quality. And Ernie Clement really didn't fall that far off this year. So I'm with you, Jesse. I'm actually going to give him a B+, just because I think the defense took another step forward for Ernie Clement, and he showed he can be durable and play another bit. He'll still be 28 years old going into next season. And I think Ernie Clement has solidified himself as probably not a starter, but your first man off the bench in the infield and a guy who won't hurt you there. So, yeah, good stuff from Ernie Clement. The Earn Dog, if you will.
Yeah, the Earn Dog. Like, literally, I feel like he could possibly be the next generation of Johnny Mac for this roster.
Ooh, wow. Except I think he can hit a little better than Johnny Mac. He
can hit better, but that fan favorite off the bench, just it. And he'll give the timely home runs like he did a couple of times this year, like the one against San Diego or even in San Fran, like 2 not home run friendly parks, but he was able to help the Jays with those homers.
Hey, anyone who can hit a home run on a pitch off their eyeballs, I'm a fan of. And Ernie Clement did just that, so that was great. Next player on our list, and we're going to go behind the plate, and that's Alejandro Kirk, projected to hit 275 with 11 home runs in a 3.2 WAR season. Well, he only hit 253 and only 5 home runs, but did produce 2.8 WAR and a slightly below average 94 WRC plus on the season. His walks dropped and his strikeouts rose, which are usually not things I want to see, but he just started swinging harder in the second half of the season. And when you swing harder, good things happen. Look at Gavin Lux, who turned his season around for the Dodgers. He just started swinging harder. Good things were happening. Alejandro Kirk is very much in that rose, and we saw a lot of these StatCast numbers come back a little bit. Not quite to that 2021-2022 Alejandro Kirk level, but started to take another step forward and get there, and he was a very good player after we traded Danny Jansen. So give me your grade for Alejandro Kirk on this season.
I would give him a C because of like again going back from his like the All-Star season and stuff like that, and how the beginning of the year for him he was pretty much nowhere to be found except for like.
Right.
But once we traded Jansen, like his defensive run prevention, like getting runners out, and even then helped me offensively for a bit when he had that, I believe, 16 game hitting streak or 17.
Yeah.
Just everything started turning around. Like after the deadline, like he started showing that Silver Slugger All Star form, and which gives me like let me put a C. But if he didn't have that after we traded Jansen, I would have probably given him a D or something. But definitely a lot of promise showing that he could be an everyday catcher, even though I still am hesitant on having him do the bulk of the catching just because of the durability.
Yeah, so I agree with you, and the Blue Jays are going to have to try to find another catcher this offseason for sure. But like, I'm encouraged with what I saw. 631 OPS in the first half, 719 in the second half, and his OPS got better every single month of the year. He had a 9-game stretch in May where it differed, but from June, July, August, September, and October, it got better every single time going through there for Alejandro Kirk. So I'm taking it as a positive, and plus the defense and framing was the best it's ever been. I'm actually going to go with a B plus for Alejandro Kirk in this one. The hit streak and the bats, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, who would have thought you'd be saying that at the end of the year?
Yeah, true. I want to see more home runs. 5 home runs for Alejandro Kirk. Come on. That needs to be a little higher, but it's worth noting. And I will take the over on whatever home runs he's going to have projected into next season. All right, Jesse, we got to move through the rest of these with a little bit more pace. Let's go to Spencer Horwitz, who didn't really have any projections because the Blue Jays didn't think he was going to play much. Remember, he was buried in the depth chart behind Joey Votto and Daniel Vogelbach and others going into the spring training. But he came up and he played. Ended up hitting 12 home runs, 40 ribbies. He had 127 WRC plus, a 2-WAR season. He wasn't a good base runner. He's not a very good defender, but the bat will play for Spencer Horwitz. So give me a grade on him.
I would give him a B. Again, this is his first full stretch of really getting some playing time. Like, I feel like he can learn from the season. Definitely impressed, and hopefully they keep him more at first instead of playing him at second or somewhere he's not familiar with. Like, and I feel like he can, or I can say he can be a part of the big and integral part of this team if he's still on this roster come this offseason.
Yeah, he's been one of those guys that's mentioned in trades. I think we've mentioned it before, but he'll only be 27 years old going into next season. He is under team control for a long time. So let's not forget that, and the Blue Jays really do love their team control. 41 games at first last year, 39 at second, 17 at designated hitter. Run the math on that. 97 games for Spencer Horwitz. Does he get over 100 or more going into next year?
If he's on the roster, then yes. If he's not, then he still will get over 100 games on whatever roster he goes to.
Yeah, whatever team trades for him, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Should be interesting. I was just trying to find his hitting stats based on which positions he played on. But that might take some time and won't make for good podcasting. So I won't. Let's move on to the next player here. And Bo Bichette. Now, we had very high expectations for Bo Bichette. And if you gave George Springer an F, I can't imagine your grade for Bo Bichette is going to be very high. Finished this year 225, only played in half the games, went to 81, just 4 home runs and a 71 WRC plus. So missed half the season and was terrible in the half the season he did play in. Jesse, give me your grade on Bo Bichette.
I'll give him an I for incomplete and injured. So we don't like. Who knows if he was fully healthy? We would have seen the Bo Timber, like that type, like what were typical. Like who know? Like no, they never said during that press conference in a year. See how if Bo Bichette was dealing with the injury since spring training, or was it like something that came on during the season? We don't know. So it's like. I can't grade him because if I do grade him, I would be an F because of how like what we expected. But with those injuries and stuff and everything he dealt with, it'd be unfair to give him a full like grade because we really barely saw him. Like he missed half the season and can't really grade that one.
All right, I understand. Good point. I will say, though, 81 game sample size, even if he isn't fully healthy, you still want to see some of the qualities that made Bo Bichette great, and we just didn't see it, Jesse. Like, his barrel rate dropped to 4.4%, where it's usually around 10%. His average exit velocity dropped to a career low. His soft contact was very high. Like his base running was below average, and his defense was just okay. Now, injury is definitely explaining part of that for Bo Bichette, but at the same point, like getting the barrel to the baseball seems like a hand-eye coordination thing, and it's like, or maybe it's your mechanics, I'm not sure, but it's like, man, I really wanted to see a little bit more from Bo Bichette to leave me some optimism going into next year. And, you know, off-field stuff aside, it probably had a lot to do with the poor season that Bo Bichette had. He also had a stalker situation that he was dealing with for a while there, which I don't want to get into, but all that stuff could really lead to a sub-poor performance. And I don't know, how confident are you that we're getting a Bo Bichette bounce back next year?
If he's 100% healthy, because in round 2, beginning of the year, he's had the next issue from Tampa, so he missed that. Then he went to the calf. It's like so many things.
Like, late in the year.
And yeah, it's like there were so many injuries and all that. If fully healthy and again still on the roster too, I feel like we can get the true Bo Bichette back, and especially again on a contract year, it could be a scary Bo Bichette too, like what I'm saying with Vladdy.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the reports we get on what Bo Bichette is doing this offseason. He's a very quiet, reserved guy. He doesn't usually make a big public face or whatever, but I want to know that Bo Bichette is really putting in the work to have his best season yet. And I'm sure we're going to get to spring. The reporters are going to talk to him, and he's going to be like, yep, best offseason of my life. I'm in the best shape of my life, yada, yada. But I really want to make sure that Bo Bichette is putting the right foot forward here so he can have his best season. All right, the next guy, Jesse, and we're getting into some of the younger-ish players, the guys we saw play more towards the second half of this season. And this one is a player I know both you and I like. He just didn't really have that good of a statistical season, so let's talk about it a little bit. And that's Addison Barger, who on the season hit below 200, 197, 250 on base, 7 home runs, and had a 70 WRC plus. Jesse, it was worse than Bo Bichette, but also had 3.03 WAR on this season as well. He was a good drawing walks in the minors, but in his brief major league stint, he did not do that. And he just hit 1 home run in the month of September. So for a guy whose power is his big tool, we didn't see a lot of power in the month of September. So what do we make from Addison Barger and give him a grade here?
I will give him a C because, again, small sample size, first sip of coffee, like in the big leagues, like new experience. His first go around, like he really struggled, went for 1 for 19, and really didn't show why I was so high on him. But when he came back, he started figuring out and understanding like how pitchers pitch in the majors and understanding. Showed the power. He still ended up with, I believe, 7 home runs, if I'm correct.
Correct. Yeah.
And had had a walk-off home run, which is like any player can dream of doing that. Like, would love to do that. Showed flashes that in right and at third, and just really showed the tools. So I feel like coming into next season, like understanding what it takes to be an elite player in the majors, and that I feel like the sky's the limit, and why I call myself a Barger boy. But I'll give him a C for now. But I feel like for next year, if he's part of this roster and we don't trade our young pieces to get that window of championships for us back, I'll say it'll be like next year he could be an all-star, and I'll say that again and all that with what he can provide with the arm strength and the baseball smarts, and what I know I've seen him do in the minors too.
Okay, good. Yeah, he was a 128 WRC plus in AAA, and he was even better in 2022 in the minor leagues. Was Addison Barger? He walked at about a 15-ish% clip in the minors. It was 6% this year. So that needs to be better for Addison Barger if we're really going to see this guy take a boom. His hard hit rate, though, is still good. Like when he does make contact, it is still there. He still swings very hard. He needs to make some serious gains in the contact approach. But I see what you're getting at, Jesse, that there is a very high-impact piece here and a high-impact tool. And I love a guy who's got good tools, so worth noting. I'm going to lump these next, 5 players together here. And no, we'll do them in groups of 3. We'll do the outfielders and then the infielders. So we'll do the infielders here first. These 2, Leo Jimenez, Jesse, and Will Wagner, both kind of came up, played a bit in the second half. Leo Jimenez hit 229, 4 home runs, a 102 WRC plus, which was fine. And Will Wagner, we saw a very brief cup of coffee, but he looked very good in the time that he does. 305, 2 home runs, 125 WRC plus. Give me a quick grade on those two players, Leo Jimenez and Will Wagner.
I'll do a combined B because there is a lot of upside, and I was impressed for how good they did, especially Jimenez being 23 and like the versatility he showed and the smarts. Wagner just it was a flash in the pants, didn't play much, so like the majority, but that brief flash was pretty awesome to see, especially in this season. So yeah, I'll give them both a B, like a combined B.
A- for Will Wagner just because he got to the big leagues, and then when he got here, he didn't look overwhelmed. So I want to give credit where credit was there for Will Wagner. Small sample, of course. Looks like he hits much better off righties than he does against lefties. Might just be a platoon guy going forward, but not bad, especially for a guy who was dealing with a knee injury all year. And Leo Jimenez, I'm going to give him a B-. One, mostly because the base running and the defense is just phenomenal for Leo Jimenez. It's very much his best tool. In terms of his offensive production at the plate, the 4 home runs is nice, but a lot of his on-base skills came just because he got hit by so many pitches, right? And I don't know if that's a skill, and if it is a skill, it's a skill that's going to mean you're hurt a lot more. And just because he didn't get hurt this season means he might get hurt a little more. But you know my thoughts on Leo Jimenez here. And that's where I'm going to go with that. These next 4, Jesse, and these are the outfielders that I want to throw into. Nathan Lucas, Jonathan Clase, Stuart Baroa, and Joey Loperfido. I know that's 4 names there, so if you wanted to quickly wrap through a grade there on those guys, you can touch on them there.
For the brief, so Loperfido and like for I'll specifically talking about Clase after, but for the 3 others, I would give them a C because there's a lot of improvement in all of them. Lucas, 30-year-old, like I feel like again, like they said in the broadcast, 2019 will really like him. So, but I don't see a part. Loperfido needs to really work on his contact, the same as Barger. But I do see the tools there. Like when he was having that little stretch where he was actually making contact, it was great. Yeah. So like just the rest of them, just Burrow and all that, just they did what they needed to do. They're young. They're not like. Got a simple coffee. Maybe coming in the spring it'll be a surprise. But for Clase, I feel like yes, it was only like a couple of games,
7 games, 20 at bats.
Yeah, so there's bare minimum, but in those 7 games and 20 at bats, I feel I will give him an A because what he did is something the Jays have not had in decades. Is that pure leadoff, game-changing speed, has the pop, and can be our number 1 hitter, and be a true leadoff hitter and set the table, or even like I said before, even put him in the 9 to get to the big boys in the upper order to cause havoc, get runs, and just make the pitchers think about them and give up the cookies for like Vlad to drive them home or whoever's up to bat.
Yeah, I know you're very excited about Jonathan Clase.
So Clase, well, I feel like if he isn't like if they do Clase as is center and put Varsho back and left, I'd be totally fine with like something off next season.
Yeah, I don't think we can move Varsho off of center, but I see the point you're trying to make there. I just want to say too, 7 games, you got 0.2 WAR. That'll play. That is very good for Jonathan Clase. And believe it or not, he actually didn't steal a base with the Toronto Blue Jays this year. Well, he stole one and then slid off the bag and then was officially called a caught stealing. But yeah, very good stuff. And if you look under the hood, Jesse, which I love to do, he doesn't hit the ball that soft at all. It's a lot of medium and hard contact. He's a very good base runner because of his speed. He's not the best defender, but he's so fast it kind of makes up for his bad routes or his bad jumps. And those are strength skills that can be taught. So I'm very optimistic about Clase too. The other 3, Baroa, organizational depth, you can just get rid of. I kind of like Nathan Lucas. I really do. I'm not in such a big rush to trade him, but he's out of options, and I understand the motive behind that. And Joey Loperfido, man, I've never seen a guy strike out so much in my life, I feel like, than Joey Loperfido for a guy who doesn't hit for as much home runs. So I know the Blue Jays love Joey Loperfido, and they were very excited to get him back in the trade, but I'm a little worried about Joey Loperfido, and I think penciling him in as a everyday player or even like your 4th outfielder going into next year is a mistake for the Blue Jays.
No, I agree. I feel like he needs a little bit of marinating down the minors just to make sure he is like really. Yes, he had that big spurt when he was in Sugarland, having like 10 home runs
to
in
start
13
last year.
games.
Yeah.
But again, in the Pacific League, it's pretty much the home run league. Like the balls fly out of those. So like let him marinate in the AAA. It doesn't hurt. It won't hurt his development, and probably will improve it. Because look at what we did with like Teo and Gurriel when we set them down to like just find themselves, and then look what they've become. So it doesn't hurt to do that, and that's why I was saying it with Schneider too. It's like set them down. It doesn't hurt, but we know our front office. Our front office thinks they're smart, but with keeping him there, but they probably the easier choice would have done that.
And then these next guys, these are hitters that did an impact for the Toronto Blue Jays this year, but are not on the team anymore. Just 30 seconds or less, give me a take on one of these players. But Justin Turner, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Danny Jansen, Kevin Kiermaier, Kevin Biggio, Daniel Vogelbach, Brian Sermon. All of them had at bats for the team this year. None of them are on the team anymore. Did you want to throw out a grade to any one of them?
I would give, well, in his brief time with the Jays, IKF, I would give him a B, like, because he didn't, like,
yeah, he's the best one, right?
Just with his defensive and even some of his offensive, like, he definitely did more than what we thought he would do when we signed him. I remember all of us being like, why are we signing him? But he actually did good, and he also brought us a pretty good prospect when we traded him.
Yeah, he was definitely the best out of that list. Shout out Justin Turner, too. I gave him a lot of shit. He was fine, just fine. But, on the Blue Jays that didn't hit, fine was actually pretty good. All right, Jesse, let's talk some starting pitching. And we're going to clump a few of these together here. I'm going to put Jose Barrios, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett. All of them threw more than 170 innings pitched. Barrios had a 3.60 ERA. Gausman had a 3.83 ERA. Bassett had a 4.16 ERA. Toss me a grade for those three starting pitchers.
I'll give them a combined B, but the higher grade of the three would have been Barrios for the season. Just Gausman and Bassett just really disappointed me, but everyone has their own opinions on them.
Yeah, 192 innings for Jose Barrios this year. I'm with you. He outperformed my expectations. I'd probably give him a B+ here as well. The fact that the Jays just simply won a lot of the games he started was phenomenal. And I was listening back to our bold take episode, because we're going to get to that in the second half of this episode, reviewing some bold takes. Jose Barrios looked really good in spring training this year too. Let's not forget that. And then he went out in the month of April, and he was pitcher of the month in April, right? And then he had that bad stretch kind of in the middle of the season, and then he turned it on again late in the year. So that's like 4 out of the 6 months. Jose Barrios was actually phenomenal and was a quote-unquote ace for the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think people might forget that about Jose Barrios' season this year.
No, exactly. Like he had that little rough patch, but for most of the season, he was like literally the true ace of this rotation for this season. And a lot of people had their doubts on him, just knowing the last few seasons. But
yeah.
Oh, I wasn't going to name names, but yeah, you. But I definitely had faith in him, and always like was talking praise, and he always said, "I hate his contract," but now like he showed why we paid him that money.
All right, and then Kevin Gausman is the next one I want to talk about here, and I've got his. So, just give me a grade then on Kevin Gausman specifically, because his numbers were down a little bit based on the years past. He wasn't that ace dominant guy. We saw him become more of this pitch to contact guy, throw that slurve and two-seamer a little more, but 3.83 over ERA over 180 innings still isn't too bad. So give me a grade on Gausman specifically.
I would give him a C, because he did have like games that were dominant, like his complete game against the A's, like a couple complete games, a game against the Dodgers, stuff like that. But he wasn't what we became accustomed to, and that's where the disappointment and just like. But again, probably because of that shoulder injury in spring and the pressure knowing that he had to be perfect caused all this. But yeah, I give him a C because I feel like he'll definitely be better next season. How much better, I can't say, but I feel like how he ended the season is a good sign for next season.
Yeah, he ended the season well, which I think is very important for Kevin Gausman. I'm going to give him a B-, I believe, but mostly because I'm feeling optimistic. Jesse, he had 5 starts where he did not allow a single earned run last year. And in terms of the bad ones, he had 5 starts where he allowed 5 or more. Every single other start in between was 1, 2, 3, and then he had 3 starts where he allowed 4 earned runs. But that's a lot more good quality starts for Kevin Gausman then there were bad ones for Kevin Gausman. And I'm taking that as a positive sign. I know it's hard to see if he can get that movement back on a splitter to have that become a devastating pitch. But the fact that he has still shown these flashes of dominance makes me feel confident, at least, that Kevin Gausman can be good as long as he can stay healthy going into next year.
Oh, 100%. I definitely have confidence for next season, and especially working with Pistol Pete and working in the lab in Dunedin and just fine-tuning and finding how to change his style of pitching, because every pitcher has to evolve, because with today's technology, everyone can figure out how when a splitter's coming, when to swing, stuff like that. So him changing his style of pitching could really help him and become what we got accustomed to the last few seasons.
I'm with you there very much, my guy. And then Chris Bassett, I'm actually going to give him a C-. Walked way too many batters. Way too many. I think he led the majors in walks. I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago, but he had one start this season where he didn't walk a batter, and that was against the Chicago White Sox, so it doesn't count, right? He
exactly.
walks.
Is that even a team?
Exactly. So I did not love the season for Chris Bassett. I'm genuinely a little worried about him going into next year, but he threw a bunch of innings, and he did that at a 4.13 ERA. That's fine. You'll take that. It'll give your team a chance to win. So do you have a quick grade on Chris Bassett?
I would give him a C- to a D, because a lot of his starts really did hurt us, and it just was a frustration. Too many, way more blowups than positive starts I found this year compared to last year.
I normally love watching Chris Bassett pitch, because the pitching nerd in me loves seeing the change of deliveries, the different pitches, the way they go to attack people. It was stressful watching Chris Bassett pitch this season, which I didn't love. Let's talk about then three more starters who made an impact for the Toronto Blue Jays this year. Bowden Francis, 103 innings pitched, 3.30 ERA, 13 starts for him. Yariel Rodriguez got up to 86.2 innings in his first year with the Toronto Blue Jays, a 4.47 ERA. And lest we forget, but Alek Manoah did make 5 starts for this team, 24 innings pitched, did pitch to a 3.70 ERA in his 5 starts. Give me a grade for those 3 pitchers: Bowden Francis, Yariel Rodriguez, Alek Manoah.
Yariel Rodriguez, I'll give him a C, because again, first taste of sip of coffee in the majors. Used to pitching in Japan and internationally. MLB is completely different. So I feel like a one full season in the MLB will now hopefully make him even more dominant, understand how he should pitch in the majors.
Yep.
Manoah, like Michelle say, an eye for injury or incomplete, but I did see some signs of positive progression from compared to the year before, where he was a disaster class. Especially that game against Tampa, I got to see him pitch where it was his best game.
He was awesome.
Pretty much his final start of this of the season, and definitely was. I saw the flashes of what he used to be, and I feel like once he's healthy, hopefully in the second part of next season, he could be kind of what Ryu was last year for us. Down the stretch, maybe that 6th star to give us a little break in our rotation. But yeah, Bowden now, King Bowden, I'll call him.
King Bowden,
A+. A+ for this season. I was drinking his Kool-Aid at spring, and everyone will find out when we talk about our bold predictions. But what he did coming back from being sent down showed the dominance, and why I thought what I saw during our bold predictions. If he, the beginning of the year, yes, he struggled and they sent him down. I thought that was a mistake and really messed his confidence. But now what he showed with the 2 near no hitters, pretty much one hit ball games, and pretty much every other start, he literally showed what he is. And again, he's older, yes, but he's under control for so long, and why I feel like he can be an ace of this rotation moving forward.
I like that call. I'm going to go A- on Bowden Francis. Very good. It did seem like he tired a little bit down the stretch, so worth noting. But yeah, very good season from him. Yariel Rodriguez, for the points that you mentioned, I feel like even though it's a 4.47 ERA, I feel like he took a positive step forward to put himself into good position to succeed going into next year. And Alek Manoah, I have to give a lower grade, C-. He only made 5 starts, buddy. Like, we needed him to be healthy. And yes, he looked better in those 5 starts, but we needed more from Alek Manoah. The bullpen. And every single time we get into the bullpen, I don't want to talk about it. So we don't have to spend too much time in this, but Jordan Romano only pitched 13 2/3 innings this year and had a 6.87 ERA when he did. He didn't pitch well, and he never came back. Eric Swanson had a 5.03 ERA in his 39 innings pitched. He was dreadful to begin the year. He got a little bit better on paper, I guess, but the under the hood stats are not buying it for Eric Swanson. They think he is dreadful. And then the only other relievers really of note, Genesis Cabrera pitched 62 2/3 innings, the most out of the Blue Jays reliever in this pen for a 3.53 ERA. And then Chad Green got to 53 1/3 innings pitched, did have a 3.21 ERA, and did get 17 saves for the team here. Those 4 relievers, Romano, Swanson, Chad Green, and Genesis Cabrera. Quickly give me a grade for all those.
I'm just going to give a grade for the bullpen, and it's an F. Like, flush it down the toilet. Like, it's a failure. The only positive, like you said, is Cabrera and maybe Chad Green, but like everyone else, flush it down the toilet with Zach Coob.
Yes, and I wanted to throw some love to Ryan Yarbrough, who typically, if you just look at ERA plus for guys who pitch specifically as a Blue Jay, Ryan Yarbrough was our best pitcher this year. So do with that information what you will, and that's not setting the bar very high. But yeah, our bullpen was dreadful.
Not really, but I will love him back.
Yeah. If it's cheap enough, and that's exactly the type of pitcher the Blue Jays are going to be looking for, so I'd imagine Ryan Yarbrough would be there. Some of the guys that are no longer here anymore: Tim Meza, Yusei Kikuchi, Trevor Richards, Nate Pearson, Jimmy Garcia. I want to give a shout out to
Garcia and Kikuchi. I'll give them both Bs. They were brilliant when they were here. Mm-hmm. But the rest of them, I would just give like a C, and maybe Meza be an F.
I miss you, Nate Pearson. That's all I gotta say. It was fun rooting.
I miss you too.
I'd love to have you come back. Yeah, and then every other Blue Jay reliever threw less than 10 innings pitched, so we didn't want to dive into them. Before we get into our bold prediction review, grade the manager, John Schneider, and the coaching staff on how he did this year.
I won't tip my cap to him, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and give him a C. Because, and I'll say it because he drove me crazy, but he didn't. I guess he gave us 77 wins, so I guess that's or 74, or I think it was 74 or 77. I guess he gave us some wins, but I'm not gonna I can't give him a positive grade for it because we expected so much more coming into this season, and as manager, you need to get us to where we expect to be.
Yeah, I'm giving John Schneider an F this year, simply just because he attempted 14 sacrifice bunts this year, and no, never bunts. I'm blaming John Schneider for that one. In all seriousness, C does sound about right. He was given a shitty hand, and it doesn't matter which reliever you put into the game when they're all trash. So C sounds about right. You know, it's tough to put all the blame on John Schneider, but I do want to admit he could have been better this year. And I think he's going to be the first one to admit that he should have taken a step forward and been a little bit better this year as well. And I think if the Blue Jays are dead serious about putting together their best team going into next year, taking a look at if John Schneider is the right guy to lead that team, it should be a question worth having.
No, definitely. His seat should be on fire right
now. Yes. So I just had the visual of John Schneider literally on fire walking through there. And yeah. Anyways, I don't want to think about that. All right, let's have some fun. 10 minutes left in the episode here, Jesse, and let's flash back to spring training, right? When things were going well, Tim Meza was running around being bat boy for this team, right? Joey Votto was hitting home runs off Zach Wheeler. Like, everything seemed fantastic. Ricky Tiedemann still had a UCL. It was all fantastic, and everything was all coming together, and we were feeling great about our Toronto Blue Jays, and we made a bunch of bold predictions to start the 2024 season, and we are going to check in and see how we did here. Jesse, I want to start with you. If you remember some of the bold predictions you made here, and I have the facts to back them up just in case you were wrong here, but you were definitely the boldest out of all the predictions we made here. And go ahead, take it away if you remember some of your bold predictions you made at the start of the year.
I know I had a bet with Riley where it was top 10 Cy Young for Bowden Francis, which is still up in the air because there is a
Technically
chance.
true. Yes.
I know I said Barger would be a Rookie of the Year.
Correct.
Maybe I got the wrong Blue Jay to be Rookie of the Year. So then I also knew that I said Clement would be an All-Star. I was going for the Espinal magic and how he played it.
Yep, sure.
Espinal, if Espinal can be one, he could have been one.
Yep. You also added that Ernie Clement would be a 5-WAR player as well. And although he was good, he didn't quite get to 5-WAR. But, well on the right track. So I'd say losses for all of those ones. You didn't quite get there. You also did mention that the Blue Jays were going to make a big splash at the trade deadline. And you specifically mentioned Pete Alonso, which did not happen at the trade deadline. But a free agent this winter, maybe there might be
again, it's still up there.
Yeah, it's still out there, still on the table. You also said two things. Now, these ones still might come true. We don't know about this. But you said Dalton Varsho will be a Platinum Glove winner. I don't really exactly remember the qualifications to being a Platinum Glove Award winner, but he's up there. He's a very likely candidate. You also said he'd be a 7-WAR player, so not quite a 7-WAR player, but, he was third best on the team. I think he got to 4.4, so that was very good for him. And then you also said the Blue Jays will win the AL East by 5+ games. Yeah, the fans want a reaction after a 74-win season, Jesse.
Oops. I guess I was drinking the Votto Kool-Aid and all the happy joys, and should have taken that sign of Mesa wearing a 4-10 shirt as a sign for this season, but
we did also mention in that preseason episode that, hey, the vibes are not good around the Toronto Blue Jays team, and that can be a bad omen for how the season went, and boy, was it. It went there. I will go through some of my bold predictions here, Jesse, and some of these might look pretty silly as well. So my first one that I went, it was kind of a two-parter, and I said Cavan Biggio is going to spend more time in the leadoff spot than George Springer will this year. And, George Springer spent 110 games in the leadoff spot this year. Cavan Biggio didn't even play 110 games with the Blue Jays this year, so that did not go well and pan well. George Springer regressed, yes, which is what I was predicting, but Cavan Biggio did not bounce back, so major L for my part there. I also did add that Jimmy Garcia would be our main setup man because I was buying the hype going into the season. I also said he would probably be second on our team in saves behind Jordan Romano. And if you look at the first half of the season, I was right. I was there. I was getting there. But then ultimately we traded Jimmy Garcia and Chad Green became the closer and so on and so forth. So I don't think you can give me that bold prediction, but I feel like I wasn't far off.
No, I would. If I'd be generous, I would give it to you because technically he would. I believe he is number 2 in saves.
Yes, I can look that up real quick. In fact, I'll do that now. I know Chad Green led the team in saves, and I know Jordan Romano had 8. And I don't know exactly how many Jimmy Garcia had. I will find that out in 2 seconds. And then my other bold prediction, and this was the one I was most certain about coming into the year, is I had thought that Justin Turner, actually, I thought he was going to be DFA'd, but how I phrased it in the actual episode was Justin Turner will not finish the season as a member of the Toronto Blue Jays. So technically, in theory, because we traded him at the trade deadline, I got that question right. But my bold prediction was that he was just going to be so bad he was going to be cut. And he was looking real good for a while there. There was that stretch in May where Justin Turner got sick and was absolutely dreadful. But then he did get a little better, and he ultimately wasn't DFA'd. So I don't know if you can give me that one either, Jesse, but Justin Turner ultimately did not get cut.
You got to have a grade on that one.
Okay, we'll take it. And Jimmy Garcia, third on the team in saves. Chad Green, Jordan Romano, Jimmy Garcia. So not quite there. So I guess we can't give that one to me either.
Yeah, you got half.
That's right. The 2 halves make a whole. All right. And then we had Riley McConnell made a couple bold predictions, and Isaac made a couple bold predictions, so we'll touch on them here. Riley predicted Bo Bichette will lead the American League in hits, get over 200. Nope. That did not happen for Bo Bichette. He also added that because this was fueled by his outrage of Tim Meza being ranked 69 overall in the new MLB The Show rankings. And he's like, this is ridiculous. Tim Meza is going to be great. Put him in the All-Star game.
Ooh.
Yikes. That's a double oof for Tim Meza there. He said Dalton Varsho will be a 270 hitter. Better, but he hit 212. Didn't quite get there. Yeah, not as much of an oof as those other two. He also said he had a feeling that the Blue Jays were going to be good-ish. We were going to get to the end of the season, but we were going to lose on like the last day of the season, kind of like we did in 2021. He kind of predicted that. Very specific. Didn't happen. We never really got close to that. And then he also predicted that the Blue Jays would have a over plus 100 run differential, which did not happen at all for this season. So tough one for Riley. Did not get one correct there. And then I have the ones that Isaac made here. And he said that Jose Barrios will get the most Cy Young votes out of any pitcher on the Blue Jays. Now, this was his kind of tame, bold prediction. But at the time, we think Kevin Gausman was coming off a really good season. We thought we were optimistic about maybe Alek Manoah bouncing back. And we were kind of down a little bit on Jose Barrios. So I think out of all the Blue Jays pitchers, if any of them get Cy Young votes, it's either going to be Jose Barrios or Bowden Francis. And I bet Jose Barrios gets more votes just because the innings he threw than Bowden Francis. So this one might actually be correct.
Well, hey, if so, if we got two pitchers with Cy Young votes, that's a win for us.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not going to be high Cy Young votes. Maybe someone throws in like a 10th place vote or something down on the ballot there. But I know ESPN has a Cy Young tracker. I might take a look at that and see. But Scooble's going to win it, and it's not going to really be close. Some other bold predictions that we made at the start of the year. Davis Schneider, 30 home run hitter. Yikes.
Oof.
Did not get there as well. Yeah. They also mentioned that the Blue Jays will make the biggest trade deadline splash in franchise history that will get the Blue Jays fans buzzing, was his words. And acquiring 13 minor leaguers and trading away Yusei Kikuchi, Justin Turner, Danny Jansen, Jimmy Garcia, etc. I don't think that's the biggest trade deadline in franchise history. How about you?
Well, maybe prospect calls, but that's about it.
Yeah, if Charles McAdoo or Yohendrick Pinago turn out to be absolute superstars for the next decade, then absolutely we'll remember this one. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, probably not.
I'm with you on that one. He also did mention that that maybe he said maybe Alejandro Kirk is just good and that Danny Jansen gets traded. So I guess we can call that a win. He didn't get into too specifics there, and it didn't really pan out the way he wanted to, but credit where credit is due there. And he also added that a bold prediction is that the Blue Jays will finish top fives in baseball in home runs. Jesse, not only did the Blue Jays not finish top five in home runs, you were in the bottom five in home runs. A low-hanging fruit, somebody once told me about power in this Blue Jays lineup. So,
yeah, it's a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
That's a oof and a half.
Yeah. It's a major oof. And then the other bold prediction he made is that I would finally be able to pronounce Damiano Palmigiani's name correctly. And I think I've nailed it there. It took a long time. He then even mentioned, too, that we'd see a little bit of him in the major leagues, like he'd get a cup of coffee. And we never did this season. After coming off a good Arizona Fall League the year before, he just didn't quite put up the numbers we wanted to see from him in Buffalo. And he's been moved on the depth charts in this first base, third base, outfield depth chart range.
Oh, definitely. I feel like he's a lot of injuries, though, too, this year, which probably hindered him coming out this year.
Yes, which definitely is noticeable. We'll see if he gets in any winter ball, and I'd like to see what he can do because I still like the player. I still think there's something good going on there. And then we just had some bold predictions that our fans gave us going out to last year. Shout out to our friend Arnie, who just said, I think he was just trolling here, but said the Blue Jays suck. They're going to come last in the AL East. Well, joke's on you, buddy. We were.
We did it.
That one right. Yeah. So credit to you. Shout out there. Chris from the Coach's Sons podcast said he wasn't buying Dalton Varsho, said we were going to trade him. Defense is too good. He's under team control for too long. We were skeptical of that at the time. And Dalton Varsho remains a Toronto Blue Jay. And then someone said that Dalton Varsho will outwar Gabriel Moreno by more than 5. Now, he did have 3.3 WAR. Gabriel Moreno had 2.5. So Varsho did outwar Gabriel Moreno, but it was not by 5. Someone did predict that Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is actually going to become a fan favorite. Now, would you have considered IKF a fan favorite when he was here?
Kind of. I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, like me kidding, like was buying the Kool-Aid and the hype, and then just with him being so popular by the fans, and just what he did was like got us like again Charles McAdoo and that. So I guess he became a bit of a fan favorite.
There were
I know I liked him.
Yeah, and there were definitely people out there who loved Isaiah Kiner-Falefa for the work he put in with the Toronto Blue Jays here. So I don't want to turn that down. I don't know if I would necessarily say he was a fan favorite, but he was a good guy to root for, and what was a team that was really looking for guys to root for. And then the last bold prediction that a fan made, he just said Eduardo Escobar is going to bounce back and become an all-star. Didn't even make the team out of spring training. So major oof there. But that was it. Those are all the bold predictions we made there. I think we actually did a little bit better here. We got more right than I feel like we have in years past. So that's an absolute win for us, I'd say, in what was actually a very down season for the Toronto Blue Jays. So good for us. In a few episodes here, we're going to look at like some bold predictions for the offseason. And I hope that we can get a little better than what we did here. And then as the offseason goes on, we'll start thinking about our more bold predictions for next year. But these are always a fun one, Jesse, to look back and to see what we were thinking at the time and get where we need to go.
And see what Kool-Aid we were drinking or smelling salts we were smelling like.
That's right. I can't wait to see what we come up with next spring, and then looking back on those afterwards and being like, wow, just how wrong we actually were. And we think we know so much about this game of baseball, but the reality is we know nothing. A lot of us know nothing. Baseball's crazy. Baseball's wild. And bold predictions are just that, are meant to be bold.
Exactly. I like being I like the spicy takes because I'm a spicy guy. So yeah, I'll bring up the heat for this offseason's bold predictions.
All right, good man. I love that. Next week, we are going to be handing out our awards for the Buds and Blue Jays, and we have a list of probably 15 to 20 awards, the usual ones, plus some crazier ones, and we will tweet those out to our social media channels so you can take a look at them and you can vote in some of the pools yourself to see what awards are going to be in there. Like best hairstyle might be one of them, or best soundbite. There's a bunch of crazy ones that we're going to be coming up with. So it's going to be a very fun episode. We're going to try to get a guest on our show to come break that down as well. But Jesse, was there anything else you wanted to add before we get out of here today?
Definitely want to send my well wishes and prayers for all the people in the Tampa region and Dunedin and all that, dealing with Hurricane Milton and all the other hurricanes that have been going through that you're there. And hopefully you're all safe. And if, again, you just know that we're thinking about you guys up here, and just hopefully it's a quick rebuild of anything that's destroyed, and just know that we're all thinking of you guys down there dealing with the tropical storms.
Yeah, we make jokes a lot on the show about burn the trop. The trop needs to go, but it's actually kind of sad to see what has happened to Tropicana Field and to everyone else down there in Florida. I know the Blue Jays are probably very worried about their spring training complex, and I know that is really low-hanging fruit compared to everything else, the health of everyone else and all their safetyness of all the people down there. But the world is scary, my man, and making sure everyone is safe and healthy has our full support there as well. That'll be it for episode here today, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. For Jesse Teresio, I am Jesse Burrell. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week with the award show and might have some fun and games leading into that. We will see you then next week. Until then, let's go Blue Jays.
Thanks, guys.